Hello and a good morning, a good afternoon, and a very good evening to you. For good more people, for you, hope you are today everything grand and all's well in your world. Welcome to another video. Everybody on this fine day. Yes, hello. Speak monotone. Yes. Anyway, hello everybody. Welcome to another vid. The main part of today's vid, I'm going to talk about how I set up not all my guitars, but I'm going to talk about how I set up my guitars. I'm going to give you measurements and all that kind of thing. A few people have been asking for a while of how high my pickups, how my tremolo's set up, and what's the string height of the 12th fret and stuff like that. So today I'm going to talk about that in kind of like as much depth as I can of what I do to my guitars. But first, as you can see by the title, I want to announce my website. Finally got a website. It's something I've wanted to do for ages. I wanted to set up a website for absolutely ages, but I when it comes to computers, I'm an absolute idiot. So, but luckily, a very good friend of mine called Ian has set all this up for me. So, Ian, you're a legend. Thank you very much indeed. And I finally have a website. So, the link for the website is in the description box below. I also have merchandise as well, everybody. Dave merch, including stickers, t-shirts, long sleeve stuff. You know what I mean? The likes. So yeah, website description. Website link is in the description box below, and so is the merch site as well. Just give you a quick overview. This is what it looks like. It's called goodgravy.co.uk. Okay, so here's a kind of like brief overview. Oh, look, there's me. Where's my hand? There it is. Hello. Okay, so yeah, the amazingly glary computer screen there, TV screen indeed. So basically, it's kind of like a work in progress. It's not finished yet, but we've got like four main things at this point in time. We've got a home page, which is where you'll see kind of all this lot. It's got all my videos on it as well. All my videos are backed up. The right side feed, this is my Instagram feed. So all that is what I'm putting on my Instagram. At the top, you've got links. You've got my Bandcamp link where you can find all my music. You've got the Patreon link if you want to become a Patreon. Email, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. The top is quite simple. You got home page, which is what we're on now. Videos page, where you can kind of search individually for different videos. We've got forums. We've set up a forum on here as well, so you can kind of like log in and chat about all different things. So if you feel inclined to, there's the forums. And then on the right side is the store. So to give you an idea quickly of what the store looks like, here we go. So we got Good Gravy stickers, Good Gravy hoodies. This is my new logo, everybody. I'll be able to see that very well again. So thanks to the person who designed the new logo. Thanks to Ian for doing this all for me. I literally would have no idea what I was doing with it. So that's what we've got in the merch side. So anyway, so there we go. I just wanted to spend like just a quick brief period of time talking about the new website, you know, where to go to see it and everything. And I say like there's like t-shirts and stuff on there as well. Prices have gone up just because prices have gone up in general, but we're no longer using my previous supplier, so it should run a lot more smoothly than before. And they might actually stock sizes instead of not. But anyway, if you're feeling inclined, there's my website, everybody. So yeah. And I say massive thanks to Mr. Ian for setting this all up for me. I would have no idea what I was doing. I literally have no idea what I'm doing. I am the most idiotic, stupid person when it comes down to computers. Anyway, there we go, everybody. I just wanted to announce my goodgravy.co.uk website. And now let's get on with talking about how I set up my guitars and measurements and all that and the like. So yes, let's get into that. Okie dokie, everybody. So, let's get into the main beef of this video, if you will. So, today is kind of like a follow-up to a video I did a while back of how I set my guitars up, if you will. So, I've already done a video on this, but people have been asking for measurements and stuff like that. So, basically, this is kind of like how I set my guitars up, part 2. Hence the title. I'm a clever boy, aren't I? Anyway. So this is kind of like a follow-up to that video, if you will, where I'm gonna kind of go a bit more in depth on and talk about some of my philosophies and stuff like that on how I set my guitars up and obviously and I'll also tell you measurements of things like my string height and my pickup height and the way I have my tremolo set up a bit more in detail and stuff like that and maybe how I kind of maintain the guitars and stuff like that. Okay, so Let's start with pickup height. Let's start there. Okay, so I measure my pickups in a not, well, I don't know if it's not the usual way. I know a lot of people, what they tend to do is they press down the last fret and they measure it from the pole piece to the string. I don't do that, and I never have done that. And I'll explain why in a minute. What I do is I measure from the top of the scratch plate to the top of the pickup cover. So, for instance, if this hand's the pickup and this one's the scratch plate, and that's flush with the scratch plate, and I wind that up, I will measure the distance from here, where my finger's going round, to here. So that distance there, that distance there, that's how I measure it. So it's from the top of the scratch plate to the top of the pickup cover. That's how I measure my pickups. I don't measure it from pole piece to string. I never have. So that's how I measure my pickups. Okay, so all my pickups are the same height, give or take. You know what I mean? On my Strats. Les Pauls are a little bit different. I might talk about it later on, but I don't really play Les Pauls a great deal. I normally have Les Paul pickups flush to the pickup surround. You know what I mean? I normally have pickups quite low. I don't think I have anything else with humbuckers. I don't know. So yeah, pickup. I'll talk about that in a bit. We'll get to those Pauls. But Stratocasters, Telecasters, and Jags. My Jaguar and my Telecaster have different pickups, obviously, and I'll talk about that again in a bit. But all my Strats, Telecasters, Jaguars, all have the same principle, which is all the pickups are angled. And they're angled up towards the treble strings and lowered on the bass side. So the bass side is lower than the treble side. So, and I say they're all kind of based off this guitar, which if I do that too much, I might blind your face. So, the pickup heights in these guitars are as follows. I've written them down, so I know. Okay, so let's start with the neck pickup. Okay, so the neck pickup on the bass side is 1 millimeter high. Okay, so that from the top of the scratch plate to the top of the pickup cover, with a ruler, you measure 1 millimeter. So that's really low, actually, to be honest. It's not far off flush. It's not flush, but it's only 1 millimeter high on the bass side of the pickup. So the E, A, and D strings are all on that side, and it's only 1 millimeter high on the neck pickup. Okay, so on the treble side of the neck pickup, we've got it at 2 millimeters. Okay, so from 1 to 2. So again, there's a slight kind of angle there towards the treble side. So they're not flat. I don't like the sound of flat. I don't like them angled towards the bass side. I like them angled up towards the treble. And I'll explain why in a bit. I'll talk about that in a minute. So that's the neck pickup. The neck pickup, bass side is 1 millimeter, treble side is 2 millimeters. Moving on to the middle pickup now. The bass side of the middle pickup I have at 1.5 millimeters. So it's basically between 1 millimeter and 2 millimeters on the bass side. And then on the treble side, I have it at 3 millimeters. So, you know, it's 1 millimeter higher on the treble side than the neck, and it's like 0.5 of a millimeter higher on the bass side. So again, like I said, I'm not measuring this from a string to a pole piece. I'm measuring this from the top of the scratch plate to the top of the pickups pickups around, pickup cover things. Okay, and then moving on to the bridge pickup, which is the highest pickup. The neck's the lowest, middle's middle, and the bridge pickup is the highest pickup on the guitar. On the bass side of a bridge pickup, I have it at 2.5 millimeters, so it's a whole millimeter higher than the middle pickup on the bass side. And then on the treble side of the bridge pickup, I have it at 4 millimeters, so it's substantially higher. You know what I mean? It's 3 millimeters higher than the neck pickup on the treble side. My bridge pickup is. So yeah, that's the pickup height. So let me just recap. So neck pickup is 1 millimeter on the bass side, 2 millimeters on the treble side. Middle pickup is 1.5 millimeters on the bass side and 3 millimeters on the treble side. And then we've got the bridge pickup, which is 2.5 millimeters on the bass side and 4 millimeters on the treble side. Okay, so that's the measurements on my white Strat. And the reason they measure at that is because that's the height these pickups were when I bought this guitar. And I never changed it. I've never changed it. The pickup high got changed once. When I got this guitar refretted the first time, the overzealous guitar tech who it went to decided my pickups were too low, even though I had expressly said don't touch anything, just refret it so I can play it again. He decided my pickups were too low and my action was too high, so he decided to lower my action and boost up my pickups really, really high. To the point where when I got it back, it just plinked. It didn't even play. You couldn't get a note out of the guitar. And it was a really crappy fret job as well, and the guitar was just absolutely diabolically bad. He ruined the guitar. It had to go for another refret immediately. So it had like 2 refrets in the space of a week. Anyway, and when it came back from there, it played again and it was good. But anyway, but I say these the pickup heights haven't changed since then. But when this guy wound up my pickups really high, I was like really angry. I didn't like the fact he'd messed with my guitar, knowing I expressly said no, don't do it. Anyway, because I'd been playing this guitar for 10 years straight at that point, the original frets lasted 10 years before I actually eventually get them changed. So that's incredible. But because I'd been playing this guitar straight for that long period of time, there was a line of dirt around each pickup where the pickups had sat for that 10 years and not moved. So the really cool thing was I could just wind them down to that line and they were immediately back, and all of a sudden the guitar sounded the way it always sounded. This guitar to me has got a very distinctive voice. I know what this guitar sounds like, I know what this guitar can do, and I know kind of like, the way I want it set up and the way it feels. I just know everything about this guitar because I've played it so much and I've lived with it so much, and we've had good times and bad times, me and this guitar. I know exactly how this guitar sounds, and as soon as those pickups were back to where they were, thanks to that dirt line, there was actually also blood as well, because I remember one gig, I split my middle finger open on my right hand. I think I hit the grub screws, and literally just absolutely coated the scratch plate in blood. Absolutely covered this guitar in blood, and there's actually still blood in the cavities and stuff from my finger. I absolutely gouged it open. I've actually got a scar there, actually, come to think of it, from just slicing my finger open. It just absolutely covered it. So there's a line of dirt and like blood, which is really gross and not very sanitary. But that helped me get these pickups to the right height, and from that point on, I just kind of like had the measurements written down, so I kind of like knew what they were. Anyway, all my guitars are set up with the same pickup height. So my John Strat, my other Oswald Strat, they're all set at the same height. The 62 Strat is slightly different because the pickups are a little weaker in that now. Because it's such an old guitar, the pickups are a little bit higher, but basically they're not much higher, if that makes any sense. I would say it's probably like instead of 1mm on the bass side of a neck pickup, it's like a 1.5, if that makes any sense. Other than that, the treble sides are exactly the same, and the bridge pickup on the only change on the 62 is, like I say, the neck pickup on the bass side is up to 1.5. It's definitely not 2. I can just see it behind me there, sat in the rack. So yeah, it's other than that, the bridge and the middle pickup are set up exactly the same on the 62. The only difference is the bass side on the 62 is a little bit higher than it is on all my others. But other than that, they're all the same. And I find that height just works for me. And I really like low pickups. I don't like pickups high, because I don't like super high output. I like the guitar to be really, really clean. And for me to add kind of dirt from amp or pedal to kind of like grunge them up, if you will, because I don't really like I don't like high pickups. I have experimented with high pickups, and certain guitars I've gone, that sounds really good, but eventually I always wind them back down. I always wind the pickups back down eventually. So there we go. That's pickup height, everybody. And like I say, I measure from the top of the scratch plate to the top of the pickup cover. I don't measure from pole piece to string. And I have pickups that low anyway. There's never any kind of worry of getting that weird kind of overtone stratitis thing where the pickups are too high and they're pulling on the string and you get these weird overtones. So I don't really have that kind of issue. Apart from the 62's got that, but every old Strat, for some reason, seems to have this weird overtone on the low E string. It doesn't have any other string. But anyway, that's another video altogether. But anyway, so yeah, so that's the pickup heights I have on my number 1 Strat and also my other guitars as well. They're all the same. You know what I mean? There's not one guitar that I have different pickup heights on, apart from the 62, which, like I say, is slightly higher on the bass side of the neck pickup. Other than that, they're all the same. Okay, so yeah, so that's pickup height. Let's talk about string height now. Okay, I measure string height from the top of the fret. I don't ever measure from the wood, the fretboard, the rosewood, if you will, because my thinking is you don't, when you press the string down, you're not always in contact with that. You know, you're when you press the string down, you know, you're more contact with between the frets than you are the wood. If a wood's down here and you press the string down, the string goes on top of the fret. It doesn't go on the wood. So I always measure from the top of the fret. And obviously, as your frets wear down, that height invariably goes up. It's backwards. You'd think it would go down, but it goes up because the frets wear down. So I don't have a ridiculously high action, in all fairness. And in my first video, I talk about how I have my actions set up as I'm looking at it. I don't know if you'll be able to kind of see, but what I invariably do, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but what I do is I have the low E string set up at, well, I'll talk about measurements in a minute. But anyway, the high E string, it looks the highest, if you know what I mean. As you're looking at the strings like this, as in a playing position, because I feel you always want to set your string height up, you know, horizontally, but then check it in a playing position. You know what I mean? You want to be like, you know, it wants to look the same, if that makes any sense. So the way it looks when it's laying horizontal like that, as you're looking at it like that, so to say, wants to look the same when you get it into the playing position, if that makes any sense. So, as you're looking at my strings on my guitars, the low E string's here, then the A string's there, then the D string's there, and then the G, B, and E strings all slightly ramp up from the D string, if that makes any sense. So the E, A, D, G strings all have the same kind of like distance between them. And then from the G string, the B is slightly higher than the G and the E is slightly higher than the B. So they slightly ramp up. And I find that just works because most of my guitars have that vintage 7 and something radius. So if you have the action super low on the treble side, it just frets out. Whereas on mine, it's quite high, so I can actually get like quite big bends out of it before it frets out. So, and I don't really like low action guitars anyway. I don't have a super high action. It's not, you know, it's not like Stevie Ray Vaughan, Rory Gallagher high, but it's not super shredded low either. You know what I mean? There's a fair distance off the fretboard. But like I said, I tend to measure off the top of the frets, and I always have that. I've never measured from the fretboard itself. So basically, what I do is this. If I'm measuring from the 12th fret, which way would the best way to do it? So I'd basically just kind of like put the ruler down onto the 2 frets like that and measure from there. So hope that makes sense. But again, that's the way I've done it. I think everybody has their own kind of way of doing it. And that might not be kind of correct, but it's always worked for me. So that's the way I measure it. So so string height from the top of the fret, and what I do is I measure from the top fret on the 12th. So it's not this one, it's this one. This is what I measure from. So the ruler goes on like that, and I measure string height from this fret here, that one there. So basically before the double dot. Okay, so, and even though, this is really weird, and I don't really understand this, maybe somebody can explain this to me. Even though when you look at the strings, the high E string, and especially in the playing position, as you're playing it, if you look down at the strings, the high E string is the highest one you can see. If you get the guitar flat, the high E string. And even though that's the case when you look at it, the really weird thing is the measurements don't dictate that. It's really strange. So let me talk about measurements. So low E, I have at 2.5 millimeters off the top of the fret. So the low E string is 2.5 millimeters, basically between 2 and 3 millimeters, off the top of the fret at the 12th fret. The A is at 2mm, so it's just a little bit lower. And then the D string, well, the D, G, B, and high E strings are all at 1.5 from that point on. So just to recap, the low E string is at 2.5mm, the A string is at 2mm, and the D, G, B, and high E strings are all at 1.5mm at the 12th fret. That fret there, not the one behind it. So I'll measure it like I say, like that. So that's the height of the 12th fret. It's not super high, but it's not super low. And like I said, I don't measure it from a rosewood. If I measure it from the board, it'd be something different. What would it be? I don't know. It's like something like a high E string, something like 3.5mm. But anyway, I've always, that's the way I've always done it. It might not be correct way to do it, but it's the way I've always done it. So like I say, it's really strange. The measurements don't actually dictate the way it looks. It's really weird. And also, the D, G, B, and high E strings all been at the same measurement. They don't look it, but I think it's got something to do with the radius, the fretboard. Obviously, because it's got a vintage radius fretboard. Maybe that's the reason. I don't know. Maybe somebody on the tube who knows more than I do can explain this to me, because I don't really understand myself. It's always one of those things where I'm like, I don't measure string height. This is one thing I'll talk about in a minute. But these are the heights on my number 1 Strat. So that's the 12th fret. At the nut, the nut height here is not too dissimilar, to be honest with you. Again, the D, G, B, and high E strings at the nut end all measure 1.5, and that's basically measuring where the string goes into the nut from the rosewood this time, obviously, because that's the nut height. That's how I measure the nut height. Is basically get the ruler against the nut and see where the string is. So the D, G, B, and high E strings are still 1.5mm high at the nut end here. So it's kind of like, same kind of height in a way. And then below E and A strings, I have at 2mm. So the E and the A strings at the nut end are 2mm, and then the others are 1.5. Okay, so that's the string height I have. Again, not super high, not super low. I also have a lot of relief in my neck. I don't like neck straight. I don't like slight relief. I highly doubt you'll be able to see this, but maybe if I get it to the right angle. But I don't know. I like a lot of relief in the neck. I like them to really curve up, which again could have something to do with the way the neck looks, the way the strings look. I don't know, but I do like a lot of relief in it. I highly doubt you'll be able to see that, but there is a substantial relief in all my guitar necks. I don't like them straight. I don't like the slight bit of relief on it. I like, a fairly substantial, not like ridiculous curve, not like the front of a Viking longboat or anything like that. But I do like some relief on the neck. I also like the fret ends rolled as well, just because that's what I'm used to on this guitar. Kind of like over the years of me playing it, the sides of the frets are just really rolled over now, and it's just really nice. Anyway, so yeah, I do like a substantial amount of relief in the neck. I always find that when the guitars are like when the truss rod's kind of like got the neck straight, I always feel like guitars like this. Like I always feel like it's really tight. I mean, a lot of people say that's where you get the best tone. They say if the looser the truss rod, the more the flubby kind of tone. And I don't hear that or find that. I've always had my guitars set up with a substantial kind of relief in the neck. Like I said, every time my guitar's like flat neck, it's like tensed up like this, and just like getting rid of some of that tension and giving it a bit of relief. It's like it always feels like that in a way. It's weird, but yeah. So that's my string heights on this guitar, and that's how I have my neck set up on the relief. I always have the truss rod slightly slackened off, so it gives me a bit of relief. Like I said, I don't like flat necks, like straight necks even. I just don't like it. The guitar feels tensed up and I just don't like it. Okay, so let's talk a bit about string height here, because all my guitars are set up at different heights. That's kind of like my general, like I say, that's kind of my general template, if you will. The same pickups are the same, string height. That's kind of my template. This guitar, but I just go by how it feels. You know what I mean? I know what I want it to look like. Like I say, with the E, A, and D and G kind of like ramping up like that, and then the B and the high E slightly higher than the G string, and that so it looks like the high E is the highest string on the board. But they all have to be set up at different heights. The actions on all my guitars, even looking at them now, you can tell they're all different. And this is one of the things. For a long time, I tried to always set my guitars up. No, not for a long time, but for a while. I always tried to set my guitars up with the same string height. You know what I mean? Like, they were all the same, you know, so they were all like 2.5, 2, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. You know what I mean? They're all set up. I tried to set them up all the same height. But they all feel differently, and all the necks are different, so that never worked. So eventually I just was like, you know, I'm not doing this. I'll just eventually just set them up. So I know the shape, I know what the strings want to look like. You know, I want them to look like that. So I'll just set them up to the height they feel great. And they don't fret out, you know what I mean? That was eventually what I did. So string height, I would always say, never try and set up all your guitars with the same string height. They're all going to be different. So that's never going to really work out too great. You know what I mean? You know, the way one guitar feels great set up with a string height is not the way another guitar will feel. You know what I mean? You can't set up two guitars the same with the same string height. There'll always be some difference in there. You know what I mean? You can't. I just, in my experience anyway, yeah, maybe it works for some people, but for me, I definitely found that they all need to be set up differently. You know what I mean? They all need to be set up differently. You can't have... The measurements I have on my white Strat here do not dictate to the way I have my John Mark III Strat, Oswald Strat set up. You know what I mean? That they have to be totally different. The action height on my John Mark III is actually higher than this guitar. Not substantially higher, but it is higher because that's the way that guitar felt better. So it's nice to have a template. It's nice to have a guitar that you know and love and use that measurements off that as a template, but you will have to alter string height. Pickup height, I always have the same. You know, relief in the neck, I always have the same, but string height has to be different. You know, you can't have it homogeneous. It just doesn't work in my experience anyway. But yeah, so that's enough. That's enough talking about that. Okay, so is there anything else I need to mention? No. Frets. I don't like really big frets. I normally have the 6105 frets, which are kind of like the vintage modern, where basically they're vintage thin, but they're a little bit taller than normal. They're the kind of like they're the frets I really like. They're the frets I've got on my Oswalds. They're the frets I've got on this guitar. They're the frets I've got on my my Telecaster. I don't like big jumbo frets. They're okay. They feel good, but I prefer the more vintagey style frets. So that's the kind of frets I kind of go for. So we talked about pickup height, string height. Like I say, that will vary on guitar to guitar, but hopefully, you always have a template to go to, kind of like thing. I always have one string tree. I don't like to have more than one string tree because I like to be able to do the Rory Gallagher thing where you can kind of play the G string and do that kind of thing. Bend beyond nut. There are some guitars I've got with two string trees, but I prefer one normally. But some need three. Three. Good gravy. 3 string trees might be a bit much, but yeah, I normally have just one string tree. Okay, so we talked about pickup height, string height, neck relief. Yeah, I prefer these style machine heads. I prefer the Kluson style machine heads, the vintage style, because the string goes inside. There's nothing sticking out to poke you and cause pain and anguish. I think all my guitars, apart from one of those Pauls, have them. Yeah, all my main guitars have those Kluson style machine heads where the string goes inside and then you wind it around the outside. There's no massive string thing that I do. They just go neatly around the post. There's no kind of like secret kind of like stringing technique I do. I just, I put the string in and I wind it round, and that's it. You know, I normally have like two winds on each string, apart on the low strings, and then maybe about 4 on the high strings. But that's about it. I don't have like some kind of like special stringing method or anything like that. I don't put anything in the nuts of the guitars. Double entendre central. I don't put like like graphite or anything in them. I never have. I've never felt the need. So nothing goes into the nuts of any of my guitars. Double entendre central. Anyway, so that's that. I'm trying to go into as much depth as I can. So I'm looking at the guitar thinking, is there anything else I need to talk about? Most of my guitars have a sanded neck as well, so there's no finish on the neck, so they're just the bare wood. It just feels nicer. You can glide easier on them. Saying that, so I've got some guitars where the Jaguar on the wall behind me has got a lacquered neck, and that never gets sticky, so that's really cool. Okay, so pickup height, string height, relief, headstock stuff, restringing. Like I said, I don't have a restringing technique. I just bang them on, and I've done with it. Anything else? Oh, tremolo. Let's talk about tremolos. Okay, so I have a tremolo set flat to the body. I don't have floating tremolo. I hate floating tremolo guitars. I hate the Fender 2-point tremolo where there's just a screw there and a screw there. I like the 6-screw vintage tremolo with the bent steel saddles. I do think they sound different and I do think they sound better, but for me. But I always have my tremolo flat to the body. It's not floating. You can only dive bomb the guitar. You know what I mean? You can't go back on it. You can't do any of that kind of Jeff Beck stuff. You can only dive bomb the thing. And I like that more. You can still use the tremolo. It's not locked off. But I prefer having the tremolo flush. And the reason for that being, in 2004, when I first got this guitar, the tremolo was set to float because it's synchronized trem. And we were doing a gig and we were playing the song Buck Rogers by Feeder. And midway through the song, one of my strings, I forget which one it was, snapped. And when you snap a string with a floating trem, I'm sure we've all been there, that's it, your tuning's gone. And trying to get the guitar back in tune is impossible because as you tune one string, the others go sharp or flat, so it's just a constant bouncing act. And I didn't have a backup guitar. So that was a huge thing for me. And I was like, right, immediately, like, I need to know how to... I don't want that. I don't want that anymore. So basically what I did was I took the backplate off. I never have backplates on my guitars anyway. I'll just find that the backplate is the most useless piece of plastic on a Strat. I was going to realise I do apologise for the glare, everybody. The light, it's a very, very white, cloudy day, and the white, cloudy guitar, you'll probably see in the reflection. Yeah, white guitar is interesting. But I took the backplate off, and I thought, oh, there's two screws here. If I wind them in, it's going to tension these springs, and it's going to bring the thing down. So that's that. And yeah, and that's what I did. So basically, I have the tremolo set flush to the body. Like I said, you can still use it. You can only dive bomb though. You can't, do the Jeff Beck thing where it's floating. I can't stand floating tremolos. I hate the feel of floating tremolos. I hate not being able to do this. Where you can bend one string. You can bend like the B string up a tone and play the low E string as a drone, and the low E string won't go out of tune. And that's how I test the tremolos. Right, actually, that's a good point. So I normally test my tremolos in the right place by doing that trick. So what I do is I play the B string at the 15th fret and then bend that up a tone and then play the low E string to the same note. So they're both an E. And if that low E string doesn't go out of tune, if it doesn't go like that, then the tremolo's set right. You can hear that low E string isn't moving at all. I can keep going and going, and that low E string will not move. But I can still get nice kind of a lot, those nice kind of like Dave Gilmour kind of shimmers. It just requires a little bit more pressure on the tremolo arm, but not a great deal. But again, the reason I don't like synchronized tremolo is bad experience, and also I don't like the way they feel. They just feel wrong to me. So yeah, that's how I got the tremolo set up. I invariably always have 3 springs set up like that. I always have them in parallel. I don't really do the pyramid thing or any other weird kind of like spring configuration. This is the configuration I have on all my Strats. I'm pretty sure all my guitars. Yep, every single one of my Strats has 3 springs. There's not a single one that's got 4 or 5. They all have 3, and they're all in parallel. Again, that's just something that this guitar came this way, and it's always worked, so I never felt the need to change it. So, you know what I mean? There have been times in the past when I've been recording where I have loosened off these claw screws, and to get, for recording, just to get that kind of like shimmery kind of thing. But they immediately, once that's done, they immediately go back up. And again, like the pickups, with the line of dirt and horribleness around the pickup strand, in the pickup in the tremolo cavity in here, I can see from the dirt where this claw needs to go wind into. But you can kind of see that's how I have my tremolo cavity set up. And I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but like I say, you can see the tremolo. Hopefully, you'll be able to see the tremolo is flat to the body. There is no, you can see by the arm it can't go back because the arm's actually resting on the body there. So yeah, that's how I have my tremolo set up. And like I said, I don't like floating trems. They just feel really awkward to me. And I like to be able to really hammer the tremolo arm, you know what I mean? I like to be able to really smash down on it. And I find with floating tremolos, I'm a bit heavy-handed. I tend to ruin it. And stuff like Bigsby's and stuff like that, I can't keep Bigsby's in tune because I'm a bit too oafish with them. So it was one of the reasons I had to sell my gold top Gretsch, which is a bit gutting now. I wish I'd kind of like wish I'd got a hardtail gold top Gretsch instead, because I'd have probably got on that with better. Anyway, so that's basically how I set up my guitars, and a bit more of a bit more in depth with measurements this time, because a lot of people have asked me for measurements on like pickup height and string height. So that's what I do. Like I say, I like the Clouson style vintage machine heads because the string goes inside. There's nothing sticking out to stab you, because I like to go behind the nut and bend the nut and do certain things. Invariably just have one string tree. I don't put anything in the guitar's nut. No graphite, no lubrication of any kind goes in there. I never used any. I just don't. And because I've never used any, I don't feel the need to use any. The neck has a slight curve to it. It's not the relief of the neck is slightly curved up. It's not like a Viking longboat, but it is slightly. It's got quite a bit, fair bit of relief in it. More than maybe some would say is kind of like, you should have, but it's the way the guitar feels right to me. Like I said, I don't like flat necks. The guitar just feels tensed up. So yeah, we spoke about string height as well. Like I say, all guitars are going to be different. All my guitars are set up with the same pickup height, apart from obviously the Black Strat. But they all template. All my guitars template off this guitar. Basically, this guitar. This guitar. My number one is the template for all my Strats, if you will. So this is this is what I base all my Strats on. This is basically what I base everything on. You know what I mean? This is my number one guitar, so everything kind of goes off that. Is there anything else I need to talk about? Yeah. So tremolo's flush. Pickups are all the same height for all my guitars. That's kind of like a homogenous thing I do. Is there anything else I need to talk about? I don't think there is. Oh yeah, and they're all, like I say, they're all sanded necks. Always 3 springs in the tremolo cavity, all set to do that thing, so you can drone the low E string and bend, and the low E string won't waver out of tune. That's how I know. Like I say, that's how I test tremolos. So that's how I got my Strats set up. Les Pauls are slightly different. If I go to my Revelation, Les Pauls are slightly different. in the fact of I don't, because obviously you've obviously got the, like, you know, you've got the Tune-o-matic on this as well, so it's, you know, there's no tremolo to worry about. But pickup heights, I normally have set up like this on humbucker guitars. Hopefully you'll be able to kind of see. The bridge pickup is just above the surround. So it's just a little bit above the pickup surround, maybe about like 2.5 millimeter higher. And I always have humbuckers flat. Single coils always have angled, so the treble side's higher, but humbuckers always have flat. And then the neck humbuckers I always have flush to the pickup surround, so they don't, you know, so that's flush to the pickup surround. That's slightly higher. You know, have that wound down, stuff like that. And then pickup string height again. It's just like, you know, you just have to kind of like, you know, it'll just vary from guitar to guitar. The way I've got this Les Paul set up is totally different to where I've got string height wise. It's totally different from where I've got my Lemon Drop string height set up and my Epiphone string height. The pickups on the Lemon Drop, the Revelation, and my Epiphone are all the same, but the string height is differently. Again, I don't put anything in the nuts or anything like that. There's less to talk about on a Les Paul because there's not as much going on. So yeah. So anyway, and the same thing with the Jag at the back and the Telecasters. Jaguars I set up again with the pickups angled. Pickup height string height will vary. They've all got relief in the neck. Even the Les Pauls have relief in the neck. I immediately slack off the truss rod so there's relief in the neck. Telecaster's the same. My Telecaster pickups I have differently though to all my guitars. The Telecaster pickups are super high. Apart from the bass, I sync the bass side, but the treble side's super high on my Telecaster. But not overly silly, you know what I mean? They're not touching the strings or in any vicinity of the strings. But other than that, yeah, that's it. But that's basically how I set my guitars up. There's not a great deal of, you know, difference in my Strats really at all. All my Strats, which are obviously my go-to guitars, these 4 Strats here that I've got in here, which are my white Strat, the black Strat, and the 2 Oswalds, they're my main Strats that I go to. They're all set up pretty much identically, you know, apart from string height. Other than that, they're all pretty much identical. Like I said, I don't have any secret kind of stringing technique or anything like that. You know, I hate restringing guitars. When I restring a guitar, I normally like to get it done as quick as possible. I don't sit down and kind of like mess around with it. I'll take the original strings off, clean the neck, put the new ones on, and then just get on with it. You know, and start playing it because I hate the idea of not being able to play guitar while I'm restringing it. Really, I'm very impatient when it comes down to restringing. Okay, so yeah, there we go. That's how I set up my guitars, part 2. And that's with measurements and everything. So I hope this has been informative, everybody. I hope the people who have been asking for a while now, talking about pickup height measurements and stuff like that, I hope you can kind of take something away from that. I hope it hasn't been too boring, and I hope I haven't waffled on too much. But so yeah, there we go, everybody. Like I said, I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours, but I've got to be careful not to because it will get boring. So yeah, I do hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it's something you can take away. I will put the measurements in the description box below, just in case I've waffled and I'm hard to understand. But like I say, I do have not usual ways of measuring, but anyway, I've got them written down now, so I'll just doodle them in the description box below, and yeah, there we go. And like I say, please feel free to check out my website. Like I say, there's merchandise on there. There will be other things added as well. There are forums on there. And yeah, feel free to check out goodgravy.co.uk, and I will see you again on Wednesday, everybody. Have a great morning, afternoon, and good evening. And yeah, hope this video has been informative. Goodbye now. Thank you very much for watching.